Also, the trees had been chainsawed down and blackened at the end so they couldn't be seen from the top of the Illawarra escarpment there at Stanwell Tops. Here's another one, in a very tight area that if it went the wrong way you wouldn't have much chance to escape. And all this is below this. A conifer pine in the Council and now National Parks and Wildlife Service area, mysteriously chainsawed down by 3 people. And also it's right next to this. This, June 2014, what is it? It's in the E2 Environmental Conservation Area, the Illawarra Escarpment. And was a cubby house, but look what's happened now. The trees are being cut back, and in September 2017, the trees are completely dead. This cubby house is wrecked. You see those stairs there? Those stairs in November 2011 when they'd just been built. And it's also attached down the bottom to the trees, so no wonder they died. But here we are back in September 2017, no steps, it's all deteriorated. Yet there was a big to-do about getting this cubby house passed by Wollongong Council in an environmentally sensitive zone, not a residential, environmentally sensitive. And here we are going back even further in 2011 and seeing it built and seeing how it is attached to those trees. No wonder they died. Local residents were concerned that this cubby house, whatever, was built in an environmentally sensitive zone where you need permission. If it was in a residential area, well, that'd be fine, you don't need permission. But yes, this was in an environmentally sensitive zone. Plus the fact it was attached to those trees, which would cause them to possibly fail, which we have seen earlier. So anyway, the residents were sent a notice by council, the owners of this, and told to remove it or they'd be fined $1 million, which is pretty ridiculous. So for want of a better term, a witch hunt was started by these owners, these developers, and also a lot of free publicity for their on-site restaurant. And if they could really rubbish anyone, they would do it. And the person they picked on was me. They reported all this to the media, mentioned me, and I got tackled by the media. And the interesting thing was, I didn't even know this had been reported to the media. Yeah, I was totally oblivious, knew nothing about it until the 7, 9 and 10 news crews turned up on my doorstep and made noises about interviewing residents in the area, as I will probably frequently mention. And it had turned out that I was the only one of any interest because I was specifically named by these parasitical developers who apparently were trying to get the DA for their restaurant through council at the same time. I had no idea that I was even named and featured in the Daily Telegraph. I mean, they never even approached me to find out whether these claims were actually true that these people had made. That I was supposed to put a complaint into council about this cubby house, which is quite incorrect. I never put a complaint in. I do know, however, that what was put into council by concerned residents was the fact that perhaps these people didn't know that they needed permission to build this in an environmentally sensitive zone. After all, they might not know it. So I think the query went in to find out if they knew about it, and best to alert them to do the right thing, which of course really didn't seem to matter to them. So let's introduce some of the characters in this farce. Here we have Antoinette Lattouf, who apparently now works for the ABC. Lucky them. Anyway, she came and knocked on my door as I was getting ready to go out, told me that they were in the area interviewing residents about this cubby house, whatever this thing that they were doing. But she wondered if, before she interviewed me, could she use the toilet? And I obligingly said yes.
Boy, that was a big mistake. You know how a vampire gets into your house? You invite him in. And this obviously applies to journalists too. I invited her in. I should have said, public toilets are down the road. Next time I will, and you do that too.
Here we have Jonica Bray, Senior Producer, A Current Affair, Nine Network. You can see she's professionally doing her job with her mobile there in the background. Now, she ended up being supposedly very nice to me, but it was The Current Affair that were the worst to me. But more on that later. And apparently she still works for A Current Affair. Last but not least, our third stooge, James Thomas. He was with Today Tonight. And as you can see, he seems to be a bit like I wish I was somewhere else. But notice his cameraman there, filming, which appeared in their sequence. The only trouble is, they never asked me permission to film on my property. And apparently, according to Antoinette and Jonica, they should have asked me. Shame on you, James. Shame on you. You didn't even give me your business card. What sort of reporter are you?
Now he apparently works for the ABC. Lucky them. It's also funny that this story hasn't appeared in any of their online resumes. Gee, I wonder why.
So to recap, James Thomas, Jonica Bray, Antoinette Lattouf, representing 7, 9 and 10, came to my property to make accusations towards me without presenting, now this is it, presenting one single piece of evidence, one shred of evidence. No hard evidence, documentation whatsoever.
So with me asking, how did they know anything about all this? They said, oh, we read it in the Telegraph this morning. I said, all of you? And they went, yes. And immediately decided to rush down to my place to interview me about it. And I knew nothing, as I said, about the Telegraph story whatsoever. What makes it twice as interesting is that my address is not listed anywhere. So how did they find out about it? But it appears they actually contacted the owners of the Cubby house. How remarkable. All at the same time. What an amazing coincidence. Well, I guess it was just a slow Christmas news week. Merry Christmas. So I guess they had a chance to make up a lot of stuff based on all the phony rantings of the thing from another world that they spoke to. What about that? But anyway, this person who made the original accusation said in front of all these people that it was a council representative by the name of John Sharp who said I'd put in a complaint, which I never did. And that's been acknowledged by council, but more on that later. So therefore, they took the word of the thing from another world. That's the best way to describe that person, because they're not human. And hey, of course they've got to believe that. And obviously the Daily Telegraph did too, and all the other media. Thing is, none of this media contacted me to verify this claim. They just went ahead and published everything. And talk about defamation. But you've got to have money for defamation. So I can't afford that. But I can make this film because I was lucky enough, sensible enough to grab my video camera and film several minutes of this nonsense. A high point in these parasites' lives. How on earth do they sleep at night? Well, I guess they just think of the money and don't give a shit about anybody else. And that way, you are qualified journalists these days.
So let's be clear on this. To recap, they told me they were visiting residences in Stanwell Tops. No, it was only just me they were after, and they were definitely after. They said I had put a complaint into Wollongong City Council about an illegal cubby house. Yet they presented nothing in the way of any evidence to support their claim. Yet apparently in the Daily Telegraph that morning, which I eventually saw, another dubious crowd that never bothered to ask me anything to see whether it was true, they read this article about this supposed cubby house. So they all just decided, 7, 9 and 10, to send their reporters down, just amazingly, coincidentally, all together. Let's have a look at Channel 7 Today Tonight, led by James Thomas, coming onto my property at the behest of the accuser, filming. Now they're not allowed to film on your property unless they have permission, something they didn't ask.
Take a photo.
Well, let's, if we can
I don't know what you're going on about. Have you done something illegal?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are. Sorry, that's it.
Do you have a problem with the cubby house?
I don't have a problem with the cubby house. I don't know what you're going on about, except to say that it's against the New South Wales Building Code to have a cubby house in an environmentally sensitive area. And in the Telegraph this morning, they say that it's not visible from the street. Okay? It's very visible from the street. I don't know what this lady's problem is. No one has a problem if anyone does anything that's quite legal. Okay? And it's an environmental sensitive area. Environmental conservation.
What do you say?
And yeah, unbelievably, it continued to talk to me, to tell me what to do on my own property. And here I am telling her to get off my property. I did not want her there. But no.
To that, you can come up here.
Yes, could you come up here? I've asked you to keep off my property. Let's go out on the street.
Yeah.
See how his 7 camera crew are filming and they didn't even ask for my permission to film on my property. That's what these mongrels are like. You can also tell how pretty rattled I am on it with my speech. What really the hell's going on?
Let's go out on the street.
Well, I'm just interested to know why you would really care about the cubby house. It's not very visible. It's not a great issue, is it?
How can you say it's not visible when it's on the street? But what's this got to do with me?
Well, did you make the complaint about it?
I know several people who made various complaints about it.
So you made a complaint about it as
Well,
well?
I asked. I made a query to council.
Yep.
What's wrong with that?
But I mean, it's just a kid's cubby house, can't
Notice he didn't answer me?
you just let him run with that?
Are you saying it's quite legal to put a cubby house in an environmentally sensitive zone when it's against?
There are plenty of houses in this zone.
No.
He has no idea about zoning whatsoever. We're in a residential zone. Sure, you can build a cubby house in a residential zone, but they are not. Maybe they're unaware. This is why the queries went in. Unaware that they're in an environmental zone and it can't be done.
No, what you don't... Have you read the New South Wales Building Code? Have you read the New South...
Clearly you have.
Yes.
And clearly he hadn't. Had no idea.
Clearly you've got a problem with the cubby house.
No, I'm just saying, could they please comply? I queried council.
What's your final words? Can you resolve?
You know something, you have a problem with my business. My business...
Yeah, but your business started out as a boutique accommodation of 20 less people. You told every resident that's what it was going to be.
It doesn't matter what I say to people.
Oh, it doesn't matter now, but that's what you told the people.
It's Christmas, Owen. You were a child once. You had a cubby house.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe that's
Stop
why
making...
you are. I mean, it's normal. Children need to play.
Oh, look, these people, I'll talk to you when this woman's not around. I mean, I don't know why she's here.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the thing is...
Take her back and then we'll talk.
Okay.
James is mine.
James, you're all from where, anyway?
Channel 7.
Today Tonight?
Yeah.
Great.
Now, there you are, and just reviewing this footage, this is when he told me it was from Channel 7, and he told me his first name. He didn't tell me his last name. So, yeah, there you are. Asking me questions, filming me on my own property without my permission, without even telling me in the first place who he was and who he was with. And he clearly didn't know what he was talking about in environmental regards. Certainly no knowledge of the zoning conditions
And please note too, and this is for all you people that may get confronted like this one day, note that there is no documentation in their hands. It's all just verbal. Just verbal, vicious, vexatious, rubbish diarrhea from a certain person, shall we say. So ask for documentation. That is something I should have asked for right at the beginning so they can prove what they're accusing me of. Yeah, it's a bit rattling when you get confronted by these parasites about things, and you learn in hindsight what you should have asked for. But what power do these people wield?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
No worries. Thank you. No problems.
The only trouble was I wasn't there when they came back because I had been spirited away to another place by A Current Affair, the producer. And the video they recorded there, well, unfortunately became very heavily edited and didn't put me in a good light. While these people from A Current Affair were being really nice to me, really nice. Yeah, like a snake hypnotising its prey. That's what A Current Affair was. I took my video camera along, the one I had then, but never used it, and what a pity that was. It would have presented something really interesting. And of course, the Nine Network, A Current Affair, totally ignored my emails about the concerns of their editing job and the complaint about it. Well, we know these days the types of reporters that Channel 9 employ, so what else do you expect?
Now I have over here with another one.
Hello, how you doing?
Who are you?
I'm Jonica from The Current Affair.
Sorry, Current Affair? I thought you said...
I'm 10. Yeah.
Why are you people...
We're not, so we didn't come in role. I came in to chat to you.
Yeah,
I didn't
no.
specify probably a role.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So, do you mind if we just have 5 minutes? We were inside and they came straight.
I saw them leave.
Straight on.
And just followed them on.
Yeah, so...
Why are you people making this such a big story? Why are you people making this such a big story? It's a cubby house.
Yeah, I know. We'll just have a quick chat when everything's calm. You can get your point across. You don't have to come in on your property rolling.
No. I didn't want her. No, I didn't want her because unfortunately she had an AVO against me. I was around there checking for bushfire concerns several years ago, and they put out an AVO against me in court.
Would you be more comfortable talking inside, or are you happy to talk?
Well, I'm waiting for a friend to turn up, and I'm going out.
Okay, we don't need to roll anymore because we're not going to be on your property.
No, I'm not worried about you guys being on my property.
Geez, on my property? I'm being nice to these people. God, I must have been absolutely rattled.
It's just this lady who will not let local residents on their property.
Well, you were saying to me earlier the concern was that it was visible on the street and that it's also close to an electric fence. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's visible on the street and also close to an electric fence.
Well, I guess Antoinette's question fits in with all those dumb questions that these journalists ask. And I guess you don't have to get a university degree or have high intelligence to be a journalist reporter for the media. By the way, none of this news interview turned up on any reports. And where was Jonica Bray's film crew? Surely she wasn't going to put it all on a mobile phone. Yes, they turn up later. Oh, and as you can see, I continually get rattled.
So what are the concerns? You said that they didn't have DA approval?
Well, the concerns are all there was that people queried council, was this legal in the NEIGHBOURS Environmental Conservation Zone? Okay, under the New South Wales Building Code, in exemptions, you don't have to put a DA in for a cubby house or pergolas or stuff like that. But what happens in the end is the fact that if it's in an environmentally sensitive zone, you can't have it. And that's classified by Wollongong City Council as an environmentally sensitive zone. And several people brought up the subject, and we contacted Wollongong City Council and saying, oh, is this correct? And because we were concerned because it was right next to an electrified fence, which they have around the property to keep the deers out, really. And they got their kids playing right next to it.
So what would you like to see happen?
Well, I don't care as long as whatever is done in the area by anyone that is legally approved by council. I think anyone's got that justice.
Are you concerned for the safety of the children or safety of neighbours?
Well, safety of the children, the fact that it was attached to a tree, and I mean people aren't allowed to attach buildings, and it's in an environmentally sensitive zone.
I mean, obviously children don't understand.
No, but I mean the
council and
but these owners do.
They feel that they're being bullied and want the
well,
bad
who's
people
being
to go
bullied?
away. I'm just saying, what the children told us. I know they're children, so they felt that they were being bullied and they want the bad people to leave their cubby house alone. What's your response?
But my point is, why didn't the parents build it legally?
It must be pointed out here she keeps referring to children, but the owners of the property only have one child. The other two children that she refers to, and those that appeared in various media photographs, do not belong to the people concerned. They're neighbourhood children, the children of the guy who actually built the cubby house on this bloke's property. So let's be clear on that. Children, no, it's not. It's one child. And the other children belong to somebody else and has nothing to do with the owner of the property except their father built the cubby house. Let's just be clear on that. Something that the journalists neglected, failed in their duty of care of reporting, failed to mention in their reports to make it perfectly clear. But why just not make it much more sensational, even though the children were used, exploited by the adults in the story? So those reporters, they don't actually care about who they're interviewing, whether they're guilty or not, as long as they can further their careers and show that they're aggressive and all that sort of jazz.
In the first place, they got a whole stack of room on the property to put a portable cubby house. There would have been no problems. They should have sought council approval. Why didn't they do that?
Fair enough. Okay.
So, I mean, I and others have asked.
Okay. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry if you felt that you...
I don't know, but I mean, why are council giving out private information?
About who the complaint...
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it was the council.
I think it was the family.
Oh, do you?
That they knew who complained and the neighbours. I don't think you were the only one though. I think
there were other people. Yeah, there were a few other people. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, she said, you all heard it. She said that some guy from council.
Oh, okay.
Naming.
There must have been a sudden outbreak of deafness when the thing from another world named the person from council, and his name was John Sharp, is a rep from council who told her I supposedly put a complaint in. But having received a letter from the Mayor of Wollongong City Council who emphatically stated I put no complaint in, he also said that no council employee is allowed to say who puts in a complaint about or query or anything else about anyone. They do not name the person. It's called privacy laws. So I guess the thing from another world made up her own fake facts. There you are. Now, in this section, after a current affair took me to some place and interviewed me, as I mentioned earlier, we drove back, and I wish I had said, just drive straight to my house. I didn't. I said, let's drive around the block and have a look at this cubby house. I'd just forgotten what it looked like. And bingo, there was the Channel 9 crew. They were actually around, and here's what happened. The producer, though, she pulled up in the car, big mistake, But anyway, yeah, her crew was in the middle of the street interviewing these things, and she pulled up. I asked her to continue moving, but no, she refused to move the car. So this gave a chance with the guy with the dog under his arm, very strange, to actually have a go at me. And, well, what he did was caught by the Channel 9 cameras and broadcast around Australia on the current affair, and this is what he did.
Let us come out of it. And just because you don't approve of our business doesn't mean that you...
What he did was actually assault me through the open window, reached across the lady in the car and physically attacked me, trying to grab the camera out of my hand. When I reported it to the Helensburgh police about this assault, they investigated and said there was no evidence, yet here was the video and broadcast around Australia. Birds of a feather flock together, don't they? Pity I didn't have my camera on. But this is what followed the attack, shall we say. Jonica Bray from A Current Affair, producer there, is the driver of the car. And let's see what happens.
Well, who's the violent person here? I'm sorry, I'm afraid. I've got no problems. Look, you know, several people, I believe, put a query in. Well, what can I say? You know, I mean, like father, like son.
Because you're a chicken, that's what you are. I love you. Come, take a swing. Take your best shot.
Well, just hang on there a moment there, Tex. I guess he was going to hit me with the dog that he was holding. But this gentleman is the Australasian manager for Biogel, a fingernail painting company or something around the world. So I'm sure they'd be impressed with his behaviour towards people. So, yeah. Interesting, but goading me, trying to goad me into trying to hit him. Hey, the guy's a millionaire. You know, this is what they do. You know, next moment, cops everywhere. But watch what happens.
You heard me loud and clearly.
No, I didn't.
You heard me loud and clearly.
What's that?
Stop shaking.
As you can see, it reached out to grab me again, grab my camera. But the reason I'm shaking is I didn't realise was it was the start of signs of a heart attack that came later, a few days later.
Do you want to own it once upon a time?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Oh, don't lie. Don't lie. Don't lie.
I never wanted to own this place.
Oh, no.
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'll show you.
Yeah, show me. Hold on. Show me. Show me.
Take it out of my face.
No. No, you show me evidence because you are quite wrong, sir. You are quite wrong.
Don't you sir me either.
You are quite wrong, sir.
Don't sir me.
Yes, he's right. Why should I address him as sir? But at least I was trying to be polite. I wasn't standing there holding a dog under my arm for, well, for what reason? Anyway, this business also about me wanting to buy the place, I don't know where that came from. Apparently some residents quite a few years ago wanted to buy the place long before he was there, but I wasn't involved in any of that. Yet he's making out he's got some sort of documentation with my name on it, you heard him, with me involved. And he's calling me a liar. Just to fill you in, the establishment that they have is in the E2 environmental zone, not a residential section. And they wanted a health retreat there, which got passed. And apparently, according to this gentleman, if you sat on a seat and looked at the view, that was healthy for you. Well, yeah, it sounds like Dr. Google. Also, he said, and it's in council documents, that it would never be seen from Stanmore Park. So, yeah, right. But anyway, that health retreat eventually became a motel because they wanted people to stay there with their client or whatever it was. and motel, and became a conference centre, wedding reception, and now they were actually going for a restaurant. Somehow this cubby house thing with their child got mixed into this for who knows what reasons. However, it was an adult orientated establishment, no families. You could get naughty desserts, as it showed in the local paper at the restaurant, and also massages as well. Well, all on a tiny edge of the Illawarra Escarpment. Most interesting. Yet he must have some sort of book, if he says he's got evidence, some sort of book maybe for the guests that come to stay there, and has all the articles from the local papers about all their trouble with the terrible residents, oh dear, and nonsense like that. And after all his verbal diarrhea, he never produced any evidence that I wanted to buy the place, but he was pretty adamant, wasn't he? I guess you can be like that when you stand there holding a dog under your arm.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Anyway, let's go. I beg your pardon? So did they. Good on you.
I told the guy with the dog that I was going to put all this footage up on YouTube. He said, go ahead, put it up on YouTube. I don't care. Well, so here's an actual Wollongong City Council zoning map showing the zone, E2 environmental conservation, and where the cubby house was located. So we can certainly see that's in an E2 zone. And the objectives of such a zone is to protect, manage and restore areas of high ecological, scientific, cultural or aesthetic values, and to prevent development that could destroy, damage or otherwise have an adverse effect on those values, to retain and enhance the visual and scenic qualities of the Illawarra Escarpment. Apparently all for zilch. What does the New South Wales Building Code say? Exempt development like aviaries, patios, pergolas and cubby houses cannot be carried out on land that is an environmentally sensitive area. So, will Wollongong City Council break the E2 New South Wales Building Code objectives or uphold the law to prove they are not a corrupt or media influenced council as previously? Well, who knows? But in the meantime, they did announce via media that they're making the area of the cubby house, about 2 square metres, a different zoning, so the cubby house could be there. But funny enough, none of that can be found on the council website. So here we are, back to September 2017. The trees are dead, they've been lopped, dead as a doorpost. The steps into the cubby gate are gone, deteriorated. So much for the concern of the children playing there. But then again, according to neighbours, the children hardly ever played there at all. So it was all done just for show. And these people were trying to get a restaurant on site at the same time. So why not get some sympathy as well? The owners also said on the news media that it'll be gone in a few years. Well, it's quite a few years now, over 6 years. Still there, still looking very lacklustre, broken down and a fire danger because the trees that it was attached to are dead. And this is an extremely proven high bushfire zone. Oh well, it's not everyone who has money that can do what they like. Yeah, so anyway, of course, a lot of comments followed in the media, particularly in the early days of Facebook, going back there to that time of 2011, and people put up comments, people like Lisa, David, Glennis, Steve, and also in the paper from Alan, another Alan, popular name, but what a tool he is. They made all these vexatious, elite comments until I realised that they were either friends or associates, business associates of the people involved, so they were really objective. Of course, all these people have made comments on Facebooks and in the media knew exactly what happened because they weren't there. And they also showed their complete ignorance of the zoning laws. This place is not in a residential zone, it's in an environmental zone, so they're really smart about their own area, which is the number one reason they are able to say things. Of course, I do have their full names in the list of comments, and I have it well documented and recorded. So I'm sure they'll be quite happy to think about that. Hey fellas? Now let's have a look at these stairs leading to the cubby house over time. And as you can see, they were really well looked after. Is this the way that people look after children with deteriorated work like this? As a matter of fact, the guy who built this house and who lived across the road, why build it on somebody else's property? He and his wife split up after this incident, divorced and moved away. So really, what were these accusers on about? Now we have the actual exempt development code, and as you can see, exempt development cannot be carried out on land that is an environmentally sensitive area. See set for further details. Then it goes on to say, exempt development must also meet the deemed to satisfy requirements of the Building Code of Australia and manufacturer's specifications. Interesting. Oh, so there it is, listed amongst the lot there. Cubby houses. So Wollongong City Council was correct in saying it wasn't suited for a environmentally sensitive area. They had the law on their side, and so did the residents and ratepayers of the local area. Even 2UE got in on the act. Why they should, I have no idea, but the announcer, whose recording I have of what he said about me, spoke about me in a very derogatory way. He cited as his valuable source of information a current affair. God, we know what they're like, a current affair. So that's his authority. And just like all the other media, never even bothered to check with me to find out my side of the story. That's the sort of person with questionable ethics. The other thing, of course, was that this guy says
some bloke who wants to run around the streets of Wollongong with a camera attached to his hand for some strange reason, as if he's waiting to film something if something was to go wrong. It's very, very odd.
Odd. He doesn't get out of the studio very much, does he? Obviously knows nothing about social media and what people do today with selfie sticks. Well, the thing is, he's completely wrong because he happened to make that all up by himself. He's never asked me a thing. So this guy's just assumed so he can get ratings and a better wage. By slandering me, who didn't even know this was on the radio. Some friends of mine recorded this conversation, so, slander. But hang on a moment. Now, on the news, nightly news reports, online, everywhere, people put up online footage, dash cams, mobile stuff. They send it to the news media, and you know what? The news media should pay them. But they don't. They're absolutely lousy. Well, I guess it could be worse. At least I don't walk around the streets with a dog under my arms because I don't have it on a lead. I could have put a complaint into a mob called 3TV Australia within 30 days of the airing of the programs. But the thing was, not only was I floored by a heart attack a few days later, I was also subsequently discovered that this 3TV is nothing but a front for the television stations to fob off people who have complaints. I found this out when I took Channel 7 to task over taking footage from my YouTube video about a cracker night, and they subsequently used it on their news programs without seeking permission or acknowledging me the footage. But I have a film up on YouTube called Crackers, which covers that. So, here is a photograph of the area where the cubby house is. It'll be situated about that tent to the left there. And this is what it looked like back in the 60s, a camping area. What it looks like these days, well, frankly, that won't even get mentioned. However, the result of this was that a few days later after this incident, I had a heart attack. Now, isn't that wonderful? And all for free too. So that kept me out of action for a couple of months and certainly changed my life. I mean, a very stressful situation. Friends tried to say, oh, well, sue them for defamation and so on and so forth. But as I've discovered, you've got to have a lot of money behind you to sue things for defamation. Only wealthy actors can do that type of business. When I have particular encounters with people involved, I'm still challenged to a fight. Hit me, hit me. Or a person's workers might walk past me and say, I hope you die soon. Have that on video. And it's really bizarre and weird. I mean, getting their workers to say things so they're not involved at all in case anything happens. How dumb are those workers? But I just look at those people and laugh. And that's the best medicine. Oh, and of course, this film is a real kick-ass reply and win, and it's there for the world to see what really happened. So there you are. It's always good to keep your camera handy, or the video function on your mobile, on your iPhone camera. And it all ends up on social media these days. There was very little back then. So despite all this idiotic nonsense by the so-called people, adult bullies in the neighbourhood, stick by your guns. Believe in yourself if you really believe that you are right about something. So let's have a look at a conclusion with several points of the matter, just to be clear once again, and also maybe to learn something. So, in conclusion, what do we have? Well, one, police say there is no evidence of assault. Well, I guess it must be fake news, that it didn't really happen, that this is all special effects. And even though it actually hit me, trying to grab the camera out of my hands, physically touched me, obviously it's all fake news. 2, the Media Stooges, 3 of them. James Thomas, Jonica Bray, Antoinette Lattouf, representing 7, 9 and 10. 3, make sure you ask for hard documented evidence. They had none. They had none at all. 4, give no permission to film on your property. They must ask you, but don't give it. 5, never allow them into your house to use the toilet. No matter how they plead, just don't allow them into the house. That's how vampires get into your house, by inviting them in. Don't fall for the story. Tell them the public toilets are down the road. Handy hint 6. Tell them you give no permission to film you, record your voice, or use your image. That'll really sexually intercourse them and frustrate them, because you have that right. Now, they don't tell you these things. All this I found out in hindsight. And most importantly, so remember, to remove a snake that gets in the way, pick up a large stick, throw it at the snake, and the snake will move out of the way. Even if it makes funny guttural noises and sounds like it has a foreign accent, but be prepared, because it may attack you, strike at you without any warning in a savage mood. So if you track the snake down to where it lives, maybe something like this can happen. Dedicated to the victims of the parasitical media, a media made up of complete ambitious idiots who no longer believe in the truth or the ethics, only what people with money tell them.